someone else might have a different experience or a different story. But if you're asking me, that's what I'm saying. All right, let's try it again. Dona nobis pacem pacem. Dona nobis pacem. One more time. Dona nobis pacem pacem. Dona nobis pacem. Good job. Thank you for doing that with me. In Philadelphia, there are ginkgo or maidenhair trees planted along city streets. The huge ginkgo tree at South Philly's Bartram's Garden is believed to be the oldest living ginkgo tree in North America, dating back to the 1700s. Many of the trees planted along the city streets are male. The reason is practical. Female ginkgo trees produce fruit, and the fruit smells terrible. It falls on sidewalks, people complain, city governments do not want the mess, so for decades, cities planted male trees. Problem solved. Except not quite. The pollen has nowhere to go. The air fills with it. Allergies worsen. The thing that was supposed to be tidy and efficient creates a different kind of problem. The mistake was not planting the ginkgo trees. The mistake was imagining that people could keep the trees and eliminate their connections to other living things. It turns out that reproduction is not a design flaw. Relationship is not a design flaw. The messiness of life is not an accident we can engineer away. We make similar mistakes with people. We imagine that we can keep all the benefits of connection while avoiding the costs. We want community without inconvenience, belonging without obligation, intimacy without vulnerability, and love without the possibility of being changed. We want to bloom, but we do not want to change. We do not want to depend on one another. Yet, human beings are not solitary creatures any more than ginkgo trees are. We are shaped, sustained, and sometimes frustrated by relationships. The very connections that make our lives richer also make them more complicated. The excess of ginkgo pollen is a reminder that there is no such thing as an isolated ginkgo tree. There are only ginkgos in relationship to other ginkgos. There's no such thing as an isolated human being. There are only human beings in relationship. If we look closely enough, we find that this pattern repeats throughout the natural world. Consider the fig tree and the fig wasp. The flowers of a fig bloom inside the fruit itself. A tiny wasp enters through a narrow opening, pollinating the flowers as part of its own life cycle. The fig depends on the wasp. The wasp depends on the fig. For millions of years, they have evolved together, each shaping the other. We often imagine independence as the highest form of maturity. Yet, life tells us a different story. The closer we look, the less we find isolated individuals, and the more we find relationships, networks, partnerships, and shared becoming. What do people need to grow and thrive? Certainly, food, shelter. We need safety and healthcare and meaningful work. But beneath all of those lies another truth. We need one another. Not because dependence is a failure, nor because we are incomplete on our own, but rather because connection is one of the ways life happens. The garden blooms because the roots share nutrients underground. The fig tree bears fruit because of the wasp. The ginkgo cannot escape its relationship to other ginkgos. Life flourishes not in isolation, but in connection. Blooming together is not just a nice idea. It is how living things survive. It is how living things become themselves. What happens when people are asked to cut themselves off from their connections? Many LGBTQ plus people know exactly what that feels like. For generations, queer people were told that belonging came with conditions. You can stay in the family if you don't talk about that. You can stay in the church if you don't mention that. You can stay in the community if you hide that. Reflecting on the cost of hiding or being unable to be one's authentic self makes me think of Audre Lorde, the Black lesbian poet, essayist, and activist. Lorde understood that identity is not something we carry alone. At a time when Black women, lesbians, and queer people were often pushed to the margins, she insisted that people should not have to hide parts of themselves in order to belong. She wrote about the importance of speaking our truths, building community, and recognizing that our differences are not a problem to be solved. They are sources of strength, creativity, and wisdom. Lorde wrote, "Without community, there is no liberation." Not because community solves every problem, but because human beings do not become themselves alone. Without community, there is no liberation. The ginkgo trees of Philadelphia might put it another way. Without connection, there is no flourishing. It takes connection to bloom together because there is no such thing as a thriving human being who is an island unto themselves. What does connection mean for a congregation? It means worship isn't a performance. Worship is one of the few places in modern life where people gather without being customers. We sing together, we sit in silence together, we mark births and deaths and transitions together. The point is not to watch someone else here having a spiritual experience. The point is to participate in creating something that none of us could create alone. This congregation has an excellent worship team with Diane Larson as a caring and dedicated chair. As you think on these connections, if you're considering how you might support worship, there's an email on the back of the order of service. And Diane and other team members would be willing to chat. You can do something like offer a reading or light the chalice and see what else you might enjoy. Connection means pastoral care isn't the minister's job alone. It belongs to all of us. It happens when meals appear after surgeries, when someone makes a phone call, when a card arrives in the mail, when people realize they do not have to carry their grief alone. I want to take a moment to say how grateful I am for the work of the pastoral care team of this congregation. This means specific thanks to Megan Bischoff, Julia Searchin, Sally Wentz, Ed Gallagher, and Matt Deploy. Thank you for everything you do to connect to people in the congregation and to connect them with each other. Connection also means that children don't only belong to their parents, but instead also find belonging in community with people who care about them and invest in their education, their growth, even their delight. It means children learn about who they are because many adults care about them. The person teaching RE, the person greeting them at coffee hour, the person who remembers their favorite dinosaur, the person who watches them grow from nursery to youth group. Congregations are one of the few places left where multiple generations regularly know each other. A newcomer can read the website. A newcomer can fill out a form. A newcomer can even sign the membership book. But none of these things create belonging. Belonging happens when someone scoots over and makes room, or remembers a name, or when someone says, "I'm so glad you are here." Community is built through repeated acts of recognition. In the early years of the AIDS epidemic, when fear was everywhere and very little was understood, many people who became sick found themselves abandoned. Some lost jobs, some lost housing, some were rejected by their churches, some were left alone in hospital rooms because family members were too frightened or too ashamed to visit. In 1984, a young woman named Ruth Coker Burks walked into a hospital in Arkansas to visit a friend. As she passed one room, she noticed a man lying alone. No one was coming in. No one was sitting beside him. The nurses warned her not to enter. She went in anyway. Connection anyway. Community anyway. The man was dying of AIDS. His family had rejected him. He was frightened and alone. Ruth sat with him. She held his hand. She listened and stayed. After he died, his family refused to claim his body. Ruth helped arrange his burial. Then it happened again and again and again. Over the years, Ruth cared for hundreds of people living with AIDS. She visited hospital rooms that others avoided. She sat with people as they died. She helped arrange funerals when families would not. She buried many in a cemetery plot donated by her family when no other resting place could be found. What strikes me about Ruth's story is that she did not solve the AIDS crisis. She did not end prejudice. What she did was refuse the lie that some people could be cut off from the human family. At a time when society was saying, those people are not our responsibility, Ruth said, yes, they are. At a time when fear encouraged separation, she chose connection. At a time when people were being abandoned, she stayed. The natural world teaches us that flourishing happens through relationship. Ruth Coker Burks understood something similar. Human beings become themselves through connection. We survive through connection. We heal through connection. And sometimes the most life-giving thing we can do is simply refuse to leave one another alone. In Utah's Fish Lake National Forest, there is a grove of quaking aspens called Pando. It looks like a forest, but is actually one living organism. More than 40,000 stems spread across about 106 acres, all genetically identical and connected by one vast root system. Pando is believed to be the largest known organism by weight, nearly 13 million pounds. Its name means I spread. What looks like many trees is one life. Each trunk rises separately, but each one has its own leaves, its own bark, its own way of catching light. But underground, they are connected. It means remembering that the roots hold us, feed us, and make our growth possible. It is important for us to contemplate the necessity of our connections and how we contribute to one another. The idea that people can exist well in isolation is frequently seductive, and we must be on guard for it. Henry David Thoreau is quoted as saying, "I find it wholesome to be alone the greater part of the time, to be in company, even with the best, is soon wearisome and dissipating. I love to be alone. I had never found the companion that was so companionable as solitude. Okay, buddy. It's a charming quote. I invite us to caution, however, because of a few things. First of all, taking time to oneself is not the same as ignoring our interdependence. You know that you must rest your spirit. However, this aloneness that Thoreau describes includes his mother doing his laundry and his sister bringing him fresh donuts. You don't see him calling that wearisome, do you? Mistakes we've made is to lionize him as a hero when he wasn't telling the whole story. I'm just going to say that. So, the laundry, the donuts, that's probably what it took for him to thrive. Solitude seems easier if someone is helping you with your laundry. So, don't be bamboozled. It's a mistake to assume that being independent will give you the internal life that you want. Resting is normal, but isolating can be harmful. Let's consider instead these words from William Stafford in his poem, The Way It Is. What if we acknowledged and honored connection as the thing that pulls us through? Stafford says, there's a thread you follow. It goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. People wonder about what you are pursuing. You have to explain about the thread, but it is hard for others to see. While you hold it, you can't get lost. Tragedies happen. People get hurt or die, and you suffer and get old. Nothing you do can stop time's unfolding. You don't ever let go of the thread. We often sing, "Come, come, whoever you are." It's interesting that that song doesn't say to where people are meant to come. I think it's come forward, come together, come to where you belong. Maybe even we have saved you a seat. Whether you're a wanderer, a worshiper, a lover, or a friend, in this place you are invited to be connected. We have life-giving community to offer. I'd like to close today with words from my colleague, Reverend Wayne Arneson. He says, "Take courage, friends. The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone. So may we live."